All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This time with KenshinTrek doing some Castlevania 4. I'm going to pass it over to you folks. You can do your introductions and best of luck on the run.
Thank you very much. My name is Trogdor the Memenator, and I will be running commentary for this run by the one and only KenshinTrek. He is running Super Castlevania 4, a classic Super Nintendo Castlevania game, and thanks to meeting that $200 incentive, he will be running it whip only, which means we will not use any sub-weapons at all throughout the run. Kenshin, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you to start whenever you please.
Okay. Hello and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thanks for letting me be part of this Game Over Cancer event. It's always a pleasure for me to support the Canadian Cancer Society doing a run like this. This is gonna be really fun, so let's start. Let's do a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, and we are right into stage one. I am on a little bit of a video delay here. I'm not quite sure. Okay. So I'm just now seeing the run start, hopefully not too far behind compared to the stream here. Again, essence of a whip-only run, we don't have to worry about any of the sub-weapon pickups, don't really have to worry about ammunition, although you'll notice that Kenshin jumps continuously throughout the run. Jumping and motion are an important part of Super Castlevania 4, because when you jump from a higher to a lower surface, you have a momentary delay, commonly known as a clunk in the speedrunning community, and avoiding clonks and managing your speed through them is a really important part of getting your speedrun time down. You'll see Kenshin jumping very frequently throughout the run and sometimes whipping to assist certain directional inputs. Damage boosting, as you can see happening, is also a very important part of this run, and that's also going to be true throughout the run. Since we don't have sub-weapons to help us with some of the bosses, we are going to manage our health a little more carefully on certain stages, but stage 1 is just kind of a standard schlep regardless of whether you're using sub-weapons or not. As we move up through the second screen and now on into the third screen, this is ordinarily where we would pick up our 2 for our obtained cross and be able to toss 2 at once. But here we just navigate through the snap rings with the whip and we are on to the next screen. Importantly here, Kenshin does not opt to take the invincibility potion, as his movement would be impeded by not being able to make those back boosts off the skeleton, but it does mean we have to pause momentarily to take care of the bone pillar as we move on to the fourth screen of stage 1. You'll notice that an artifact of Super Nintendo games in general, these levels and stages are not referred to as either levels or stages, but as blocks. Kenshin is currently in block 1-3, and we'll be heading up to block 1-4 shortly. This next room with the flying Medusa heads provides a lot of back boost opportunities, but you have to be careful. You'll notice we only have 3 ticks of health left, Medusas being one of the rare enemies that only deal 2 ticks of health, so we can afford a single back boost right there. And you'll note that he floats the whip a little bit before taking that hit, because you can't hit a Medusa directly without destroying it. Again, quick movement here moves us on to the final room before the boss, and Raudane is coming up. Without the ability to throw crosses, this fight is a little more extended, and it's mostly about making sure Raudane doesn't have many chances to jump up, delaying the fight during the second half. And excellent movement there, and a very good time for stage 1 as we head into the forest. First couple screens of the forest present challenges for speedrunners, as those hands, and one of them gets in there right away, will grab you. They cannot be damaged in a meaningful way, so you just kind of have to hope that you don't land on them as you pass through, and take some back boosts from spiders as we move on to the swamp section of the forest. Now, it's very rare to die in stage 1 and not simply reset the run. If, however, for some reason you have lost your cross and you need to get a new one, you can head left there where you saw him split right, and there's a jump down to a spare one. However, again, we don't have to worry about that for this particular run as we move on to the second of the two grave areas of this forest. This time, instead of purple hands, we have these zombies that impede our progress, and we're into the bog. Ordinarily here, we'd have some upward movement with the crosses and kind of take an upper split, but with whip only, we instead opt to jump across the bottom part and simply deal with the frogs as we see them there, taking a back boost from that one bat, and sort of dangling the whip in front to take care of the frogs since it's a lot more difficult to aim directly at them. And we'll be coming up shortly here on Medusa. Fun fact, this bridge has an interesting programming flaw where if you jump at it at a particular angle, it is possible to fall through it and take a death that doesn't seem to make any sense. We're going to head now into the Medusa fight, which in any percent is about a 2-second fight that requires no effort, but here requires much more careful and precise positioning. Kenshin will take probably a couple of hits here, hopefully no more than 2 or 3. Alright, pretty good Medusa, and we are on to the back half of Stage 2, which is just a rapid river descent down into the opening of the caves. That claw enemy not dealing any damage, but robbing you of all of your heart ammunition, which in this case doesn't matter. You'll notice Kenshin deliberately not destroying those mutated Batman enemies because they'll come back around and provide back boosts on him in the second half of this level, and we do want that motion forward whenever we can get it. Again, really excellent motion in this first and second stage that we've gotten here. I really only see one minor mistake that was made in terms of time, and we are pretty solidly in the green as we head into the ancient ruins and cave. This first part of the cave, again, a very different experience in whip only compared to any percent. Without the benefit of crosses, the mudmen, which can split in a couple of unpredictable ways, have to be dealt with much more slowly and carefully to avoid losing too much life, because you need to take some specific damage boosts both in the waterfall section and in the first part of the ancient ruins in order to maintain your progress forward. Generally, you want the mudmen moving away from you when possible. Oh, and Kenshin takes 2 hits from that first pair of mudmen. That's not ideal. He'll have to adjust strategy on the waterfall in order to compensate for that loss of life. Alright, so into the waterfall, we deliberately take a damage boost that saves us several seconds worth of climbing as we head up to the next section. Now here there is ordinarily an opportunity to take damage and get an early ring snap to carry us up faster. Here we just don't have the health to do that, so we take the long way around, hopping up and making a ring snap. One moment here. You can see here the upward ring snap allows us to travel. Ooh, wow, that was excellent dodging there, avoiding taking that second hit. And we're up vertically here. All right, whew, made it to the next screen. Again, the one possible benefit of doing a whip-only run is you can take a deliberate death, as Kenshin just did there, refill your health, and you haven't really lost anything because you'll have your whip power-ups back very quickly. And we move into the second part of the ancient ruins. Now, with a slightly shorter whip for this first section, Kenshin has to be a tiny bit precise with some motions, but not too precise. Back boost there, again, saves us several seconds as we move into the White Dragon fight on the stairs. Kenshin probably just taking a deliberate hit here as we go up the whip. Yep, exactly. Alright, now here we have to be careful. Again, we have a shorter whip than anticipated, so it does slightly restrict our motion. We want to make sure we don't have an unfortunate fishman spawn, which it looks like we avoided here. Taking that cross lets us avoid several enemies as we move underneath, and we are on to the penultimate screen of Stage 3, a rapid climb up with a couple of different white bone dragons to face as we head towards the Hydra. Vertical whip snap with really great motion there means only 2 snaps needed to move up. Kenshin will take care of some pesky birds and a couple of skeletons, in fact just bypassing with the damage boost there, and we are on to the Orphic Viper fight. Key thing here, and really as with any percent, is trying to hit both heads at the same time as frequently as possible. One head, as you can see, spews multi-directional blast, the other one just a blast of scalding steam, and we're already through the Vipers and on to Stage 4. Bit of a time loss there in Stage 3, but overall it was very decent movement management and kind of a deliberate death taken towards the start of the ruins there. Kenshin even having time to ban a bot there as we head into Stage 4. So Stage 4 will have 2 boss fights within the same stage. First, we will deal with Licks You Up, only it's spelled backwards, so it's Puexil, the giant skull, and then followed by Ton A Rock, or spelled backwards, Coronaut. Again, I mentioned clonk management earlier, very important here in Stage 4 because the clonks will occur on top of these turnabout floors, which means if you're not managing your jumping carefully, it's down you go, and try that stage again. Alright, the fight with Puexil, ordinarily managed by jumping to the center and throwing crosses rapidly, here is instead a little bit of a safety position, as Kenshin whipping up both to remove the projectiles that fall and deal with the boss itself. Very well handled, and we're on to our Mode 7 room. For anyone like me who was born between 1985 and about 1992, Mode 7 was at one point the pinnacle of 16-bit graphical capability, and this room shows it off in beautiful style as Kenshin finds a nice cozy hangout spot to wait the room rotation. And we rotate part 2. Again, this room and the following room both showing off elements of Mode 7. The spinning room will show off kind of the other capability of Mode 7 here in just a moment. The motion for this particular whip swing, when to start it and when to release to obtain footing on the platform as quickly as possible, was carefully studied by Castlevania speedrunner JC, and pretty much everybody uses his method now for getting onto that bridge. Here we are in the rotating sepulture room. Skeletons will fall from the ceiling as those wiggling pink tombs reach the ceiling in the appropriate spots. You can manage which skeletons you have to face as you move across, but generally for time loss sake, it's easiest to just always hold right and know which skeletons are going to fall on you. This next room, notably, is where Super Castlevania 4 speedrunners will often perform what is known as the zip, where you zip across this entire room and towards the back half of it, saving about 30 seconds off of a run. There is technically a way to do this whipless, but it is extremely risky, and dying here will of course be a time loss, so Kenshin just moves through the room normally here. We avoid the instant death crushers, and we are on to the final little staircase of Stage 4 before facing our resident granite golem, Coronaut. Coronat here, again, a fight that's quite different in any percent, where you'll have generally crosses moving across the screen at all times to hit him. Here, it's just a matter of keeping within range of him and avoiding the blocks that fall from overhead. Coronat not dealing a lot of contact damage, so it's fairly easy to avoid an accidental death here. And Kenshin may have the lineup necessary to get an early orb. Nope, not quite. That's okay. It was still an excellent stage 4, and we shaved some time off of that time loss from stage 3. Coming up, we have a short intermission stage, the Castle Court, which doesn't have a boss. It's just kind of a stroll up towards the start of Dracula's castle, but it does contain Super Castlevania's 4 attempt at a Fleaman Alley. That is to say, these little flying griffin enemies here contain this game's version of Fleamen, these rabid robots, or rabid rabbits, rather. Making it through Fleaman Alley with basically no problems at all. Excellent motion all the way around. And we are on to the skeleton hallway prior to the stairs up to Dracula's castle. Now, Kenshin does have to be careful here. He is one hit away from death, though there is a meat on these stairs he'll be able to grab, and does so just in time. Very good. And we are up and through into Dracula's castle. Bit of a time save in stage 5 as well, so we're really recovering from that little setback in stage 3. Well done. Stage 6 contains the other half of our Mode 7 show-off in Super Castlevania 4, with the chandelier portion coming up shortly. But first, we have this quick romp through the lower halls of Dracula's castle. It's at this point that a New Game Plus and New Game Run become the same thing. Certain enemies have now been toughened to take multiple whip strikes instead of one, but the Armored Knights and other enemies are no tougher on a New Game Plus run than they would be here. Chandelier motion, very important. Again, here, no differences from an any percent run because this is all whip and snap based motion. Kenshin opting to take a slightly safer route across these chandeliers because if you do fall, it is quite a setback. A lot of runners will still reset here if they fall off the chandeliers. This would be a 4-cycle run, which is still very excellent motion all the way across the chandeliers. And we are on into the main portion of Dracula's castle. In an any percent run, you can snap one of these bricks right here that you're walking along to go down into a hidden bonus room and collect whatever sub-weapon you please. But here we don't have to worry about bothering with that. Kenshin opting for a slightly safer route, eliminating each of these ghosts as they appear, so that they don't cause problems attacking from behind here in a moment. Excellent clonk management as we move underneath the little pass here. We'll take a bat boost here in just a second to hop up onto the upper ledge. Right, and we're on to the second of the 2 hallway rooms. Kenshin opting not to take the Anduin skip by hitting that skeleton and walking along the spikes momentarily, but conserving health again, very important here for a whip-only run. Skeleton hallway here, ordinarily you throw a lot of crosses just to clear out the enemies. Here it'll be a combination of whips and just jumping over certain enemies. And of course the Bloodbones only staying dead for about 4 seconds before reviving, so quick movement here is important. We'll jump over those ghost hands in the background to avoid being held still like the purple hands in stage 2 tend to. And you'll notice again these sword skeletons here now taking 3 whip snaps instead of 2 to destroy. And we head into the coffin boost room. How you handle boost movement through these coffins is often the difference between a gold stage 6 and just a regular stage 6. But in whip only, you're going to take some damage regardless, so it's really just a matter of choosing where you want to take the damage from. Kenshin here will be grabbing an amulet. There we go, all the enemies gone from that flash. And now we just have to watch for spare dancers as we continue moving through the hallway. Oh, and Kenshin does, in fact, get ambushed by a spare dancer, taking a death there. That's okay. Not as much of a problem as it would be in an any percent run, because we don't have to worry about losing our sub-weapon. We do really want to get our chain whip back before the end of the hallway, though, because the bosses require a longer reach on that. Alright, and we're on to Paula Abgul and Fred Askair, the bosses of Stage 6. Ordinarily, this boss fight, again, over about as fast as the Medusa fight. Here, a little quick motion and constant whipping, and we still only have to deal with a single cycle of them as we move into the Unliving Quarters and Library for Stage 7. Again, highlighting the differences between an any percent and a whip-only run. We've had 2 deaths so far, and we're less than a minute off of PB pace for an any percent, showing how quickly this can turn things around. Library's primary dangers revolve around the high enemy count. There's one difficult platforming section, but generally this is the point in a Super Castlevania run where it becomes important to know what enemy you're facing and what their movement patterns are, because if you haven't got that memorized by now, you're going to be taking a lot of hits, and unfortunately Kenshin is taking quite a few hits here, having that rogue axe really get him. Oh, and we take another death. That's alright, we'll start fresh and just keep going. Kenshin illustrating that second time around how that jump down onto the stairs is meant to go, whipping the whip around in a circle to catch the axe before jumping over the axe knight himself. Just didn't quite happen the way he wanted it to that first time. We'll move into the vertical section here, which is really just a couple of strong jumps downwards with positioning, and this is the platforming section I was mentioning here coming up. There is a book jump boost that you can take in this section that will allow you to quickly navigate these otherwise slow-moving book platforms. Kenshin opting, however, not to do so in a whip-only run as a general rule. Alright, and we are on to the Rug Monster section of Stage 7. We're going to have a Rug Monster appear a couple of times and try to headbutt us into some spikes, but we know he's coming and we won't fall for it. Everyone say hi to an enemy that only appears a single time in all of Super Castlevania 4. I'm not quite sure what the story on the giant centipede here is, but regardless, he's an enemy that we ignore in both any percent and whip-only runs. Our second Rug Monster, again failing to impale Simon Belmont's head on these spikes, as we head into the final screen of Stage 7 and prepare to face the haunted suit of armor, Sir Grackle. Grackle's boss pattern being an interesting one in whip only because he does have the ability to decide to block certain hits with his shield in the second half, and in this first half he can choose to either throw the axe or slam it on the ground and create an energy wave. We want those axe throws because they go right over our head. So far, very cooperative Grackle, and look at that, immediately down with no problems at all. That was an excellent Stage 7 boss fight as we head into the dungeons. Now, this level, if you haven't already told, is the dead giveaway that we are playing on the Japanese version of Super Castlevania 4, because our blood is in fact colored red instead of the green slime you might be used to seeing in this level if you've played the American slightly censored version. This, of course, being a dungeon, you can imagine why it might be filled with blood as we move through several instant death spike platforms and onto the second screen. Possible damage boost there, but Kenshin opts to take the health and preserve high health moving into the second part of Stage A. Notably here, there are several opportunities to take shortcuts along higher platforms that exchange damage trade-offs, Kenshin only taking one of those so far, opting to keep his health very high, because there are also sections later on where you can quickly get chain juggled by enemies or drops of blood from above. You may note that in a whip-only run, you can pick up a sub-weapon as long as you don't actually use it, but Kenshin, with careful motions, not even picking up a weapon, and avoiding whipping at certain moments that might actually be beneficial but would risk touching a candle with a sub-weapon. Kenshin taking an unexpected death there. I'm not sure if the duck didn't happen or what, but we're just going to be on this same screen, so it's not too bad of a time loss as we again back boost past these two damaged platforms, and we are right back where we were. I see. I think Kenshin was planning on having the invincibility from touching that dirty blood water to keep him from getting hit, but here that didn't quite work out. Again, not too bad time losses here. The whip only is a lot more generous in terms of being able to take deaths as Kenshin moves towards the Vegas bridge. Kenshin choosing not to take Vegas, but rarely would we do that for a charity run to begin with. And we're on to the Frankenstein boss monster. Now, Frankenstein whip only is a very simple affair. Find your right spot and whip upward, and don't stop whipping upward, and hopefully the fight is over before he decides to walk forward. Here he takes a couple of steps, but not so bad, and the fight is over after just 2 quick ticks of damage. On to the Treasury in Stage 9. This will be the last of our numbered stages. And again, the slight background parallax you see here with the ghost scrolling in the front, one of the neater special effects that the Super Nintendo cart could offer us. Now in this stage, the floor frequently disappears when it's made of gold coins like that, and the following screen after this one will be nothing but that disappearing floor, meaning that even whip only, you can't really afford to stop moving forward, so timing your jumps, your clonks, and your diagonal whip strikes is a matter of life and death. Unfortunately, Kenshin taking a death there, and that one is going to hurt and set us back by about a minute and a half. That's just about the worst place you can take a death in Stage 9, but we are going to keep moving forward. Little cleaner motion as we head to the second screen this time. And Kenshin hitting that amulet and health restore before we head to the disappearing floors for a second time. Let's hope we get a little bit of a better pattern as we jump off and take care of the gold skeleton this time. There we go. That's the motion we were after that first time. Alright, and unfortunately right there is the checkpoint that we wish we had had before we took that last death. That's okay. Moving into the second half of Stage 9 also hosts the second possible of the 2 bonus rooms you can enter in Super Castlevania 4. Again, we won't be entering either one, but should you happen to need a sub-weapon or just some extra health or ammunition, the upmost of the sucking holes coming up ahead is our entrance to that bonus room, as Kenshin gets by the dropping ceiling with no problems, and we move towards... Now here, the interesting damage boost here renders you temporarily invincible to those little holes, and so he moves right past them and onto the gold staircase, so named because every single thing in here drops money. The enemies drop money, all the candles drop money. There's no way to get anything but money in this room, but you can pretty easily score an extra life should you be looking for one. And at the top, our final, normally numbered stage boss, the Zapfbat. Again, here, a very different fight in Whip Only versus Any Percent. In Any Percent, it's pretty important to time the phase transition, I guess you'd call it, of Zapfbat, where he splits into 3 smaller bats, to be at a good height for throwing crosses left and right. Here, you don't have that option, so it's really just about getting them to a comfortable height to whip diagonally, since the little pieces of gold flying off as you strike them do hurt you if they touch you. Kenshin here opting to start the second half of the fight on one extreme side. And so far going okay. Gotta be a little careful here. And a nice double kill to finish things off. Okay. And just like that, we are on to the Clock Tower Stage A. Growing up playing Castlevania, my friends and I often argued which was the best version of the Bloody Tears theme that you hear here. I think I still prefer the one from Super Castlevania 4, but a lot of people really prefer Dracula X or even the original Castlevania 2 version of the song. Stage A, a mostly vertical affair as we move up several layers of the clock tower utilizing ring snaps and these cogwheels here. Kenshin having a momentary difficulty getting on those stairs, but manages to avoid a death as we head upwards. Little ring placement here lets you avoid the skeleton on the stairs by just jumping directly to the stairs above him, as Kenshin does here, having to watch his health a little bit as we move into this second vertical section. There is a bit of a skip up ahead that requires taking one hit in whip only, but Kenshin may opt to simply take and he does opt to take the slower route by snapping the dragon outright, which means he'll also stop on the left here and grab this amulet. Kenshin's got to be so careful here because we've only got a single pip of health left. Grabbing the amulet to destroy the dragon as we move on to the final screen. Now again, we've got some health out here, but we've got to get to it, so slow, careful movements being the recipe here. And we've got the health, and we're on to Akmadan II. Hoping here for a right mummy spawn, and unfortunately getting middle mummy, which is not as bad as left mummy spawn in this case. Ordinarily, in an any percent run, you would want the left mummy spawn so you could quickly spam crosses while crouching down. And unfortunately here we get the left mummy spawn, which means we have to content ourselves with jumping and whipping down, so this will be at least a 3-cycle mummy fight. Okay, decent upper spawn there, so we can at least wrap this up relatively quickly. We might be able to avoid the 4-cycle, depends on how fast Kenshin can get these whip snaps out. Nope, we will have one more spawn. That's okay, and it's a middle spawn, so we'll finish this off really quickly here. And we are on to the final stage of Super Castlevania 4, Dracula's Tower, the Castle Keep. First part of Stage B involves some of the toughest platforming challenges in the game, with a quick vertical descent followed by a trek across an infamous disappearing bridge. That disappearing bridge creating massive amounts of game lag, which are ordinarily dealt with a combination of jumping whip snaps and crosses, but here we don't have the crosses available, so Kenshin will jump back much more frequently to deal with the bats, avoiding that slowdown as best he can. Saving the last round of bats in order to get a back boost down these stairs, and we are on to the infamous Climb of B. The stairs in this tower all disappear as you touch them, so you have one shot to make it up the staircase each time, and you saw that rotating instant death disc down below. That's slowly chasing us up the tower, so that if you do fall, you'll inevitably get killed anyway. Must have missed the sound effect. It looks like Kenshin did pick up an extra life on score somewhere in there, so we have room for a mistake, but we may not need it as we move on to the floating stairs. With this, you just kind of have to know where you're going to avoid being driven into those spikes as we head up for the second portion. Coming up, we have the Room of Close Associates with triple boss fight against Slagra, Gaibon, and Death, before finally moving on to take on Dracula himself. Kenshin with some excellent movement up these stairs, preparing for the final floating staircase section. Alright, the fight against Slagra is again very different in whip only compared to any percent. Ordinarily you want to manage your crosses here in order to hit Slagra every time he's vulnerable with all 3 crosses at once, dealing the most damage you can to him, because he's invincible in between individual hits. Here, it's just a matter of whipping him as quickly as you can, hoping he doesn't glitch slide into you for this first part of the fight, followed by staying far away from him in the second half and hoping he doesn't utilize his double dash forward too often. Kenshin taking 2 hits so far, which is not very bad. Alright, very clean Slagra fight overall as we move upstairs to our macaroni and cheese breathing gargoyle, Gaibon. The Gaibon fight, again, over very quickly in any percent because you can force him to fly directly alongside your crosses, taking damage every tick he can. Here, much more about player positioning and being able to angle your attacks where they're needed. As we have the famous macaroni and cheese breath. Very clean Gaibon fight, excellently done as we move upstairs for Death. Death possessing the only attack in the entire game that can take 5 pips of health away at once as opposed to 4, that Scythe Swipe being the one in question. See, here we're hoping that on his right side transition, Death chooses to descend down slowly and use his helicopter pole instead of Scythe Swiping. We'll see how lucky we are. And we do in fact get the helicopter pole, so Kenshin can content himself to just whacking here, and hopefully one cycle will be all that's needed. All right, got it off in time. And now we move into the final fight against Dracula. Management already knows this, but for those of you who haven't watched speedruns of this game before, time will be when he touches the final orb after the sunlight breakthrough and death of Dracula for this time around. But first we have 2 phases of Dracula to get through. This first phase involves a combination of fireball attacks, summoning fire spirits, and even occasionally providing a feast in the form of a ball of glowing meat. You'll see what I mean here in a moment. The ideal teleport cycle involves hitting Dracula 4 times each time he teleports in. Kenshin so far getting 3 of those 4. Ordinarily, these spawns would be considered troll spawns by Dracula. When he spawns on the side like that, it makes it much harder to hit him with crosses. Here, we don't care about that as much, because all we can do is whip him in the face. Kenshin really hoping Dracula decides to have some meat available for this next cycle. And unfortunately, we have now twice had no meat from Dracula, so Kenshin's going to have to be very careful here. He can only afford to take a single hit during Phase 2, where lightning rains down from the sky as we try to whip Dracula down before we are taken down. Everyone get your GGs ready in chat. And that is a successful whip-only speedrun of Super Castlevania 4. Kenshin breathing a big sigh of relief. Excellent job, sir, and we appreciate it. Well done. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Kenshin and to Malcrios to have any last commentary here.
Hello in there. Thank you very much, Trogler, for the great commentary. Thanks a lot for helping me this way. Okay, this run is done. I am not gonna lie, this was far from optimal. I made many mistakes. Also, I want to say in my defense that I had really bad luck in several places. But yeah, many mistakes, several deaths, 41 minutes. This is speedrunning. You sometimes do good, sometimes you don't. But I still love the game. I want to say that I love the game. I am just really sad that the game doesn't love me back. And finally, I would like to say that once again, I would like to show my appreciation for the community here in Game Over Cancer. Thanks for letting me be part of this event. I have always been really happy of supporting the Canadian Cancer Society. My final message to everybody watching this is please go and check yourselves with doctors. The most important thing about cancer is cancer prevention, which means that you have to go and check yourself, check your loved ones. Prevention is really important in order to fight cancer. I hope that everybody that is fighting this, or families, relatives, my best luck to you. Thanks once again for letting me be part of this, and I will see you next time.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, Kenshin. That was an incredible run, with an incredible commentary and very informative. But everybody, don't go anywhere. Stick around. We'll be right back with Clevered playing Super Mario Odyssey.